Please put your hands together for Mrs. SNY.
Kindly permit me to stand on the existing protocol to present the speech of the keynote address of the Director General of NESREA, who is unavoidably absent in this important occasion. He sends his regrets anyway. The DG is speaking on the topic based on a perspective. The DG's presentation is from regulator's perspective, so to speak. So he's looking at the topic and the role of regulators towards a secular and resourceful economy. Secular economy focuses on reducing wastage and pollution, and it has encompassed all the R's, 5 R's we can think about. So this is the presentation outline. I have just a short time, so I'm going to summarize whatever I have here. Circular economy focuses on reducing wastage and pollution, and it encompasses all the R's you can think about, from 3 R's to 5 R's to 7 R's to 9 R's, from reduction, waste reduction, to repairs, to reuse, recycling, remanufacturing, rebranding, refurbishing. So it encompasses anything that will ensure that a product lifestyle lasts longer so that it doesn't get to waste. And even when it gets to end of life, it forms a product for another thing, a raw material for another thing. So a cradle-to-cradle approach to product usage and manufacturing. So it is based on the principles of creating a closed-loop system where waste is minimized and products and materials remain in use for as long as possible. So it replaces the end-of-life concept with restoration, shifts towards the use of renewable energies, eliminates the use of toxic chemicals which impair reuse and return to the biosphere, and aims for elimination of waste through the superior design of materials, products, systems, and business models. The benefits are so much, both those that are directly and indirectly. First of all, it has to make for resource efficiency and environmental conservation. Issues concerning climate change are reduced. Greenhouse gas emission reduction, it encourages that. And most importantly, there's economic growth and job creation, and it reduces dependency on imports. One way that the Nigerian government has tried to incorporate of circular economy in its system is the use of the extended producer responsibility. The extended producer responsibility program in Nigeria started with the National Assembly, industry, and the regulators, particularly NESREA and the Federal Ministry of Environment, where we were all invited on a meeting. And the EPR, which is a major provision of the national regulations, was now had to be implemented. The extended producer responsibility is a system that promotes total life cycle of products. So it gives the manufacturer the responsibility of it gives responsibility to a manufacturer so that products and its packaging materials at end of life, the cost is borne by the manufacturer. So it promotes the integration of environmental costs associated with goods throughout their life cycles into the market price of the product, and focuses on the end-of-use treatment of consumer products to increase the amount and degree of product recovery and to minimize the environmental impact of waste materials. It also encourages the producers to implement circular economy. The benefit of the Extended Producer Responsibility Program includes facilitation of waste reduction and effective pollution prevention strategy. There are a number of these, but given the time constraint that I have, I'll just go straight to the EPR system that we are working with now so that we can look at it and Lagos State will also know where they can fit in. Already we are working with Lagos State on this. So the EPR is a major component of a number of national regulations for the manufacturing sector, particularly those of the food and beverages and tobacco sector, electrical electronics sector, plastics, base metals, non-metallic iron and, metals and non-metallic products, paper, motor vehicles, and the battery sector. To implement EPR in Nigeria, the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency, during the meeting I mentioned earlier, was mandated to produce a guideline for other stakeholders. So in this guideline, all the stakeholders were identified and their duties delineated. The stakeholders include, I want to go straight to the stakeholders, includes the producers, the PRO, who is the Producer Responsibility Organization. This is a third-party stakeholder that is set up to manage the waste or products at end of life for the producers. There are the collectors, there are the recyclers. NESREA here represents government. So it's not just NESREA, it means government at different levels, both the ministries, federal ministries, state ministries, MDAs, environmental protection agencies at also state levels. So there are the collectors and then there are the consumers. Going back to this, the guideline was developed and there were delineation of duties. Also, items amenable to EPR were also identified in the guidelines. And these include papers, plastic, tires, chemicals, used batteries, e-waste, and a number of other things. So the idea is that manufacturers under all these sectors organize themselves and come up with a system whereby their products at end of life, the waste from the packaging and also some of the components will be sustainably managed. The idea is also that the manufacturers will also incorporate sustainable practices and circular economy approaches in their production system such that items that ordinarily wouldn't be easily recyclable or reusable or easy to repair, that's to incorporate the 5 R's into their system to ensure that sustainable production and consumption is enhanced. So NESREA as an environmental regulation enforcement agency at the national level have a number of duties to do with respect to implementation of the EPR. And this also transcends to the state EPAs, for example, LASEPA and the State Ministry of Environment, who also has duties to do in respect to implementation of the EPR in Nigeria and in Lagos State. So the EPR model we have in Nigeria recognizes the PRO as a driver to the to the project, for the program. The PRO have explained that already. And the model we have in Nigeria is industry-led, and it hinges on government-private business relationship. This is already working in Lagos State because, let me not jump the line, I will come to that. So the model provides investment opportunities in the waste value chain and in building environmental and socioeconomic resilience against future challenges. It also provides investment opportunities and technology and transfer. So far, there are 4 PROs. The E-Waste Producer Responsibility Organization of Nigeria, that is in charge of the electrical electronic sector. There is a Food and Beverages Recycling Alliance, FIBRA. So there is a FIBRA that is in charge of the packaging items from the food and beverages sector. There is the ARBR that is in charge of waste batteries. There is also a 4th one that is in charge of the used tires. So all the idea is that producers and manufacturers of these items work together with these PROs to ensure that these items at end of life will also be properly managed such that recycling will be enhanced. So in operationalization of the EPR program in Nigeria, there was a project funded by the Global Environment Facility on circular economy approaches for the electronic sector. The project state was Lagos, and this project facilitated the setting up of 30 collection centers in Lagos State for proper collection of e-waste. And one thing that this project also achieved was the formalization of the informal sector. We call them informal sector, not scavengers, because we worked with the Lagos State, with LASEPA and LOMA, to ensure that a system for collection of e-waste in Lagos State is put in place, and that appropriate recycling measures are put in place, and that collection centers and informal collectors who ordinarily were being harassed, they're not harassed again. The project also made for the amendment of the National Environmental, Electrical, and Electronic Sector Regulations and updated it to current trend. And there is also development of a database on e-waste generation and collection, as well as recycling in Lagos State. These were part of the project procedures and some of the things that happened. Now, for the food and beverages sector, there is the PRO, and they are working seriously with the plastic sector. At the moment, they have commenced the development. There is a plastic waste regulation that is on ground. In fact, the review is being done nationwide tomorrow. And the PRO is also key to this. For the battery sector, this is very important considering the challenges that we have. In most places, especially here in Lagos, you see that batteries, sometimes they just cut it, pour out the hazardous components, throw hazardous components into the environment. So the PRO is also working with the key stakeholders to ensure that a proper collection and recycling system and handling and managing other management issues are being put in place such that the risk and hazards associated with batteries at end of life is eliminated. For the chemical sector, there's also a process of registering their own PRO. So the challenges that has to do particularly with improper handling and management of some chemicals at end of life and their packaging materials are also addressed. The used tires were just launched a few weeks ago, and they are working seriously with many stakeholders, with other dealers, importers, to make sure that the used tires also and their challenges are addressed. There are a number of challenges that this process has also encountered, and which Lagos State may also have to look at to learn from what we have done, so that they may also plan even far ahead of us. They have been known to be the pace setters. They can also set a good pace where other people can also learn from. So there is many facilities are not ready to key into this extended producer responsibility, and by implication, they are not ready to key into circular economy approaches. So a number of enforcement activities need to be done, and enforcement must not be through a way that must be hard, considering economic issues. We may have to consider some other approaches so that in using a carrot and stick approach, it will be a win-win for everybody. So there is also a case of insufficient awareness, and the volume of waste recovered from recycling is minute compared to the quantity generated. So in moving forward, we look forward to working closely with Lagos State government, particularly with the agencies, as we are doing, to have more collaborations so that in working together, the circular economy approaches and the sustainable economy will be formed for us all here in Lagos and in Nigeria. So implementation of circular economy approaches holds so much for us all here, and during the discussions, I believe that we will all bring in all our ideas so that the objectives of this program will be achieved. Thank you very much.